Welcome to Brainhead Labs. I'm Eli, and I'm a lifelong maker. I've been in the periphery of gaming since I was a teenager. I was a comic book collector, video gamer. I've always made things. I started out making things in leather, and I did that for about 5 years. I've done photography, molding and casting. I've been learning Blender for the last 5 or 6 years, ZBrush for a couple of years. I just like to make stuff, useful things, not useful things, ugly things, hopefully pretty things sometimes. Yeah, just whatever strikes me. So I thought it'd be fun to do on the show because I do all those things, but I'm not a professional. I am not gonna sit here on YouTube and say I'm an expert because I'm not. But I know how to figure things out and I know how to make it work. And I thought that might be interesting for people. Maybe you pick up a tip or two, or maybe you tell me a better way to do it. So I'm going to do one episode a month. I'm just going to pick something to make, and maybe at some point in the future we'll take votes. But for now, I'm just going to decide. I have a few things planned, and I hope you'll watch and like and subscribe. Today we're going to make a leather dice tray. Prem and I don't have one, and we're constantly rolling on the table and it misses the camera shot, or with some of our dice dents the table. So I thought I'd make a Brainhead Labs dice tray. This is just for us. This isn't really like for the Etsy store or anything. So here's the setup. When I was 16 to about 20, did leather work. Not at a super high rate, not at a super high level, but like pretty cool stuff, Ren Fair stuff and things like that. When I was about 16 or 17, my grandma gave me all her leather working tools. I have a family of makers. It's no wonder I ended up here. My grandfather was a woodworker. My grandmother did a lot of different cool crafts. My dad made a lot of stuff and was an art major in school, and here I am. And I can't decide on one medium, so I just make it all. So I did a project a few years ago. I recovered an old film camera, and I had some leftover leather from that. It's just enough to make a dice tray. So we're going to try it. I'm going to use maybe 6 main techniques, and I've never made a dice tray, so I don't know. I get the concept, though. They're pretty straightforward. So the first thing I'm going to do... Well, here, let's draw it out. So this is not always my initial stage. Sometimes I just go for it, but I feel like for the show, I want to try to kind of show what's happening inside my brain, which is usually like trying to figure out measurements, trying to figure out if I do this, what is the effect on that? And if I use this material, what does it do to that material? And just things like that, just the intricacies of like making it work. So what I know about dice trays is I like the hex ones. I feel like that gives it more rigidity. It's battle techy, so I like that. So to start with, the bottom of the tray is, I'm not going for accuracy here, is a hex. So here's our hex. That's not to scale. I'm not worried about scale right now. I'm worried about just making it make sense a little bit better. So obviously, like the tray, the way I've seen them in the stores is, and I did a few Google searches to measure, is basically in theory, you have walls that go straight out from your hexes, and then those walls are connected so it'll fold up. So then you have like nice little curves here, which I think that's going to be the hardest part because I don't have a rotary cutter. I have scissors and I have X-Acto knives. So I think we'll be able to get a pretty good edge, but it's not going to be like English saddle quality. But that's okay. So here's my thought. I'm going to make the walls about 1.25 inches high. I think if I had all the leather I wanted, I'd do 1.5 inches, but I'm on a very small piece right now, so I'm not going to do that. And then I was thinking, because I used to do a lot of leather carving and engraving, I think it's called carving. So in the middle, I thought I would do our logo. That way we can use it on camera. So, and then the last part is the corners. The leather ones I've seen have, I don't think I can draw this, but it's like you have the two sides come up to meet, and then you have an extra fold coming off of that corner, and then you just do either a snap or a rivet. Probably do a snap even if it's not functional. And who knows, I might have nicer rivets in there for double-sided, but I don't remember that. I just have literally a pile of stuff from leatherworking that I haven't touched in a few years, 5 years. So that's basically it. The idea here is we have, the tools are kind of, so I don't know if you can see this, but this is a punch. So this will be the holes for the rivets. I have some different sizes. A lot of them are like pretty crappy, but I have this, a stitching thing. I don't know what it's called. It's like where you punch the stitches out. And then I'm hoping I have some twine or something thicker that I can stitch it with so it really shows. Just give it that nice leathery feel. And then this is, I don't know what this is called either. I learned all this stuff myself. I didn't I didn't go to school for it. I don't know what you call it, but this is what you use to carve the lines. So you can make really nice lines. I'm going to keep that carving pretty simple. I'm going to do the outline of the letters. I've got these things that you can punch like texture in. So I thought maybe I'd do like a grid of that. And then I have these little tools that make texture. So convex or concave some of the cuts. And so you can like make the letters really debossed. So yeah, so that's the plan. I think the trickiest part here is going to be cutting it because I don't have any professional tools for cutting the leather at the moment. So I think if we can get a good cut, and I might cheat a little, and actually no, I'll probably do it on the printer. I can just print out the shape and cut it that way instead of trying to do it by hand or do it by measurement. I think what we're going to do is lay out this leather. So obviously too small, but I do have this big chunk here, which it's probably 10 by 15. This is my favorite tool. Not this specific one, but just calipers in general I love. I feel like I use them every day, basically, especially in 3D printing to try to get everything just right. And like, I've had a lot of problems in Blender where something looks like it's the right size, and then you go to measure and it's like this big, and you realize it's not going to print right. So it's good to like help visualize some things. I can't really measure this whole piece with it, so that's kind of silly, but I do know from BattleTech that a hex is longer in one direction, which is the pointy direction. So I'm going to do the pointy directions out this way, and there's a soft spot here. There's like a thin spot here, which I might use anyway if I'm double layering it. I mean, I don't know. That's pretty thick. So I'm going to aim for the center. Yeah, I can safely get 10 inches out of this. So the sides, once you pinch it like this, I think they're going to be stout enough. Like it's not going to be a solid thing. It's just got to stop a little dice. And we're going to do a lot of overhead shots, so the carving will look good. Let's see what happens. I was very lucky, and I had a friend who gave me this chunk of leather. It is dyed or coated in some way, but I did a test, and it did take the engraving pretty well. So, and then I did some cuts. I don't know how well you can see that. I did some cuts, and I did some marks just to make sure. It doesn't take the water quite as well, but I think it's going to be fine. We're changing tact a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this for the base, which is like really nice and heavy. It's got a little bit of wrinkliness here, but that'll give it a nice organic feel. So not too worried about that. I don't need anything rigid to be in the bottom now because that'll hold it all up. It's going to be a beast to stitch, but that's okay. I also went and got some cement to glue this to the main part, and then I got this gel to dye it medium brown. So I think that's going to look pretty nice. I don't know how it's going to dye because of this coating, but either way, the base, the main part will dye pretty well. And I think the other thing I might do is I might go this route and have this be the inside and let the raw edge be the outside, because honestly, like Prom and I are going to use this for our air quotes and margin notes show, and it's going to be overhead, so you're not really going to see the outside of it much. So I'd rather the inside look nice. Today's goal is going to be to finish it all the way through. So that should be interesting. So here's the steps we have left. I'm going to cut this out, and then I'm going to carve our logo, which I think I threw away that sheet. I'm just going to hand draw it. So cut it out, hand draw the logo on there, emboss it, whatever you want to call it, engrave it. I think engraving in leather is what people call it. Once that's done, we're going to, I don't really know what they call it, but there's like a tool. I don't have one. I've always used the edge of a pencil and it worked great, but you just kind of wet the edge just a tiny bit and then push it down and it just sort of rounds out that edge really nicely. Once that's done, I'm going to glue this on to this part. And then I'm going to hammer that, I can't find it, fork thing. Okay, it's for real gone. But I'll basically hammer all the stitch marks in. I've got an awl somewhere, which is like a stitching thing. It pushes the thread through, really saves your hands. I got this wax thread that'll be nice. Once that's done, we'll do rivet holes and either rivets or snaps. Wish me luck. So I've got it flipped over. I'm going to mark the back. I don't know if that's the right way to do it. That's how you do it when you saw something though. So that's what we're going to do. I have a semi-sharp pencil, which is perfect. And I'm just going to use this again. It can be a little off. This doesn't have to be perfect. I've said that a bunch of times and I'm probably wrong, but it is what it is. It doesn't write on there very well, but I think it'll be good enough. And that is the goal. I'm just going to mark each corner. I don't really need the whole edge. I looked at the craft store for leather and I realized this piece that my friend gave me was very kind because leather half this thick and a little bit bigger a sheet was like $25 now. When I used to do leather work, you could get that in a scrap bin for a couple bucks. It's gotten crazy. I mean, making anything's gotten expensive. Anyway, okay. So we've got it marked. I don't know if you can see that very well. And we're just going to cut, I think I'm going to cut a scrap piece just to see how this knife does against this leather. Okay, and like last time, I did 2 cuts last time. I think this one might take a little more, but it helps to like not push down on that first stroke just to get a, oh yeah, no problem. Okay, nice clean edge. And I'm going to try to do it pretty vertically. That's pretty tough stuff. Okay, we're almost through. There we go. Okay, nice. It's not perfect. It's pretty perfect. I don't know. I think that's a pretty good edge though. It also helps to start like out just a little bit from your cut, and that way you like get the flow of following that ruler, and the stuff you're cutting doesn't force it to a different direction. Because if, I don't know, like with wood, you can end up caught in the grain and it'll sort of steer the cutting. I don't know if leather does that, but leather is pretty forgiving, so you can kind of get around some of it. Okay, but you want to be moderately careful. I mean, yeah, you want to be careful, but you want to be moderately careful about the quality issues. Okay, so there is our hex. Now we're back where we left off. The question is really hand drawing it. Let's do it on this paper and then I'll push this through to get on the leather. Somebody told me in paint one time that if it sucks, just keep adding paint. I don't think that's quite true for drawing. It's not a bad suggestion because you can just keep adding lines. So there's our Brainheads logo. Pretty good. I've never drawn through this paper to put it on leather, and I don't know how well this is going to take the design, but we're gonna give it a shot. I'm going to test it on a small piece though, just so we can see, because if that water doesn't take, or that paper's too thick, it might not work. Let's tear a piece off. We're just gonna wet it a little bit. It's not wet at all. So let's just draw pretty heavy-handedly. And it's not perfect. It's decent. I think we'll be able to see that. I might need to go back through with pencil and or with a blunt instrument of some sort and just redefine the lines, but I think it'll work. The other thing we're gonna think about here is stretch marks, I guess. I don't know what they are. It's probably where it had more of a curve and got flattened out, and so there's just more material. I'm not, part of a cow. So I think from a video perspective, it makes sense to put those at the bottom, because if the logo's here, you want the top to look nice. There's no right or wrong on that, but that's kind of my preference. I'm gonna cut this out. Okay, I don't have scissors. In a general square around the piece, that way it'll be a little easier to center. And since we have those nice lines already, we can just use those to center it up if you center these cuts. So, and I know it's not gonna be perfect. Once again, not the goal. It's skewed, but what isn't? So I'm gonna put it generally there, and I think I might pick an outside line. Yeah, I mean, it's on there. I think it'll be good. And then that did drag a little though. And then just do these straight lines to start, because we can always hand do the other ones. And I'm just holding this as tight as I can. I'm just picking the lines that I think are going to be the right ones that moved. So I'm going to try, if it moves, to not repeat lines. So like the side of this in is also the side of this eye. So I'm not going to go back over that. I'll just fill it in the final. Okay, I'm just going to work my way over, sort of. Wow, it slides a lot. And I'd rather underdo this. The other thing you could do is just do the outlines just to get it on there faster and like fill back in the others, but that's a little tricky. Okay, we're making progress. So I'm going to do this B so we kind of lock it in. I moved it. Okay, I don't know if you can even see that. I think it's good enough to cut though. Okay, so lining it back up should be interesting. I think the best way to do that is try to cut a couple of letters on opposite sides. So like now I can see where that A terminates, and then do that. And now I know where that H is going to be. Don't freak out though, like it's fine. Okay, and then now I know where the H is going to be. We did lock in that B luckily, so I can just do it. And this is real lo-fi. Okay, so now we should be able to find our placement. Yeah, so it's right there. And I'm just gonna try really hard not to go over any of the lines I already did. I'm sure there's a better technique for this. People probably use like transfer paper, all kinds of fanciness. Oh my God. Okay, I don't have enough paper to do the edge of that. I missed the A. I don't know if you can see that. I think it's pretty good. I think it'll work. Yeah, I can just go back over and pencil. Since you're cutting the line out anyway, you're not going to see that. So I think that's what I'll do is get the rest of this, and then I'm going to go back and pencil and see if we can make it work. Not sure you can see it, but definitely more visible than before. It's hard because like if this was not dyed leather, I think you'd be able to see it a lot clearer, the marks. So I'm really hoping it'll hold its... Because technically you're not really supposed to do this, but it's just all I had access to. And I just don't think there's only one way to do anything. I mean, I'm sure the leather workers out there are cringing at this, but if you accomplish something, there's not really an exactly wrong way. Unless it's like, I don't know, building a building. I guess there's a right way. So there we go. I'm not going to show the whole me drawing over this, but that's sort of the ordeal. So I'll check back in once I have the drawing part done, then we'll try carving a line. I got it done. I'm not sure how well you can see it. I think it looks pretty good. You can definitely see all the lines. Next thing we're going to do is carve it. We're just going to follow these lines. Easier said than done. Don't aim for perfection. I'm a perfectionist. If I let myself lean into it, I would spend 100 hours on this. It wouldn't do any good. Here's the truth of the matter. Perfection doesn't come by, maybe it does sometimes, but it comes less slow, methodical work. It comes more with, if you wanted to get this perfect, do it 10 times. Don't try to get it right on the first try. You're going to learn things, you're going to mess up. And if you let yourself free of that, you're going to find a process that works way better for you. One of my favorite books is Art and Fear, and he talks about a pottery teacher who splits his class in half. Half the class can turn in one perfect pot. That's all of the semester. They just have to turn in one pot. The other half gets graded on weight, how many pots they make, basically. The conclusion is every time the people that made a ton of pots had the best pots. Not all of them, but they got it figured out. Whereas if you're trying to make one pot perfectly, it's just not going to happen. Or maybe it will. I don't know. Sometimes it will. But generally speaking, it's repetition and it's practice. And I'm not saying do 1,000 hours, 10,000 hours, but if you do on my 5th one of these, I would have it down to a better degree. So just don't beat yourself up over it if there's like a line off or something. I fight that urge in myself a lot, so I aim for it not to be perfect, and I'm happy if it comes out good, and then I move on and make something else. So, okay. I don't know how this is going to go. I did test this out, and I do know that if I had a sharper blade, we would be in much better shape. You can't really wet this stuff very much, but let's just do a little bit. But let's just try. Let's do an inside line, because I feel like the outside edge is going to be the most important. So, and again, this is about as sharp as a ballpoint pen, so not ideal, but they didn't even have these at the store yesterday, so I don't know. Don't care. It'll cut. All right, so we're just going to go here. And the pressure kind of needs to come this way. So let's just try it. And I'm just going to start right at that corner, and I'm going to do a shallow one first. But we want it, especially in this material, a bit deeper. So I think that's pretty good. I'm going to go the other way because it was a little easier to get the back end of it right. Yeah, there we go. You're basically just slicing down about 1/3 of the way through. Probably less than that, really. I think my goal here is going to be, I think I'm just going to do all the vertical lines, and then we go back and do all the horizontal lines, and then I'll do the curves, just to procrastinate on those curves a little bit. I'm not going to worry too much about water, but because you can see it just beads up on this, but it is getting kind of down in the places. Okay, so now we feel confident enough. This edge looks a little better. I'm just going to start knocking out vertical lines. I don't know if there's a method to this. I don't have one. I think if I had to have one, I would say just undercut before you overcut, because if you go too far, it's harder to come back from that. And if you don't have a knife like this, there's probably an alternative. I'm not sure what it would be. Maybe a butter knife? I mean, you can kind of make an impression on leather with anything. It's just making it look good. Careful on those ends, it'll jump. Like I said, I'm going to wait on these curves. I'm just going to kind of go for it. I don't, like, besides it skipping and getting into a bunch of other cuts, I don't really know how I would screw this up badly enough where it wouldn't work out in the end. But who knows, maybe we'll find a way. Okay, and I'm just trying to get the line to be like even depth throughout. In some ways, the curves are going to be harder. I think it's going to be harder to follow the line, but I think in some ways it's going to be easier because they're not as defined. Like a straight line, you can tell exactly whether it's straight or not, whereas a curved line, if it's a little off, no big deal. It's like harder to go get the same depth without losing that. I'm just putting most of the pressure up here. I'm not trying to force the blade really. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm just trying to just nick the surface when I start just to make sure where I'm at. Just kind of helps orient where the blade is. They made us when I was taking art classes for drawing. I just missed the line. The big thing was putting 2 dots on a page and trying to connect them really quickly without, a ruler. So it was a lot of like, draw here, connect it. And it's amazing how much you miss that. Not miss it like I wish I could do it again. Miss it like go here, and you're like, So it's a lot of hand control, which is what they're teaching you, but this is a lot of that. It's like trying to get that line to follow. So really, if you can practice enough, it's not about following your line. It's like looking at your start and finish and doing that. And that way you can kind of fix some of your issues that you had when you drew it on here. And it really seems like the hardest part about this is continue. Like if you don't do the line all the way through, trying to get it to continue, it's like hard to pick it back up without jumping. Okay, we got a few more vertical lines. Yeah, I know this is not technically a vertical line, but it's more vertical than it is horizontal. Also, I don't know why I'm wiping it away when nothing's coming off, but I think it's an old habit. I used to, like last year, I got really into linoleum cuts, which I think is probably going to be a future episode, but you're carving out and you're going to get rid of the scraps. Okay, so now we're going to do the horizontal lines. I'm going to wait on the curves, and I'm just going to knock out all the horizontals, exact same way, same method. I'll wet it again. I don't know that the water did much for this. It seems to be holding okay, so I'm just going to start here. There's no art form that doesn't hurt your back. The other thing I didn't like about that thin leather is you'd almost get marks just from touching it, like just from, having your hand across, or like my fingernail caught it at one point and it just gouged it. So this is nice. So you can I got a nail mark on there, but it's not like the other one was. I think this one will come out. There's all our straight lines. So next we'll do the curves. Let's see if we missed anything else. Yeah, we missed the little lines on this H. Okay, ignore the thunder. Hopefully that's not ominous. Again, we can kind of clean up these edges in the hammering phase because you can see where that one sort of doesn't meet perfectly, but that's pretty good. Nobody's going to look at individual letters that closely. They're going to look at the overall. That's true for a lot of artwork. You worry about the details, but nobody really looks at the details. Like, eventually they will, but if the overall is right, then the details don't really matter that much. There we go. Okay. Now we're at the point where my next plan is kind of the same as before. I think I'm going to do texture for the inside of the letters, hammer out the outside so it sort of stands out more, and then and then hope for the best, I guess. So we're just gonna hammer out those inside lines with, I don't know, honestly, I'm not sure how well you can see that, but this one's like, it's got a sort of conical tip with an angle on it, and then it has little cross hatching. I also have this one though, but it's much smaller. I'm just gonna look at all the ones that are made to hammer this out. I mean, here's the deal. Any of these would work. Honestly, you could do it with like the back of a nail if you wanted to. I don't know what that is. Okay, so we're kind of down to these 3. These 2 are the same thing. It's just like a teardrop shape with texture on it. And then this one has tighter texture. This would take 2 decades to knock this out because it's so small. But it might be good for going back in the corners to get. So I'm going to leave it out. So I think we're going to do this one. And let's just do a test patch. So let's wet it just a little bit. That doesn't show up a whole lot. So let's try this one. Yeah, that shows up better. I don't know if you can see that. I think that's what I want. It's a little bigger of a crosshatch. So let's do that. So let's just start with the letter in the middle. I'm just gonna go in the corner first. And I'm gonna try to hit it hard enough to go in, but not so hard that you see the edge of this tool. We can always go back and knock it in a little bit more. I'm actually wondering if we should go around with this one sort of flat. It's a little bit rounded corners, but it's sort of box shaped with an angle at the top. I'm wondering if we should go in and just knock these edges down a little just to give it more definition. I think that's it. Yeah, it just brings it out just a little bit more. I'm going to do this around the outside edge too. And then we'll go in. Two of those things together should help make it more prominent. Don't be gentle here, but the harder you hit, the more it's going to go in and like show the edge of this. You know, and that's not really what you want. I'm just trying to evenly disperse this, because if you make it too even, you'll start getting lines in it. I think this is working. Like, this would work a lot better if this leather didn't have whatever coating is on it, but I still think it's going to work. It might not be quite as prominent as it would have been. Make sure, but I think that looks pretty good. I mean, it makes it stand out. That's the whole idea. More legible, more textury. Okay, I'm going to do the rest off camera because it's going to take a bit. I'll come back and show you where I'm at. Okay, so I got a little bored, but I did get about maybe a third of the way through. I'm going to keep working on it, but I wanted to do the next step because I just need to do something different. So the next step is going to be pressing down the edges so that, like, if this is the leather and this is the line, it just pushes it down, and then you want to sort of taper it off so it looks like all the leather is lower, but you're not having to hammer all the leather lower. So just to make the leather stand out more. So I'm going to try that. So what I learned on that last one is if you kind of start by pressing that line in just to sort of indicate and like make that a little more prominent. That works pretty well. And then I'm just going to hammer, I'm just pushing it in to the side and kind of following that line by feel. I'm going to do it lightly first, and I'm going to kind of tilt back a little more, and then I'll go back through with that other tool. Here, I'm just going to do two edges so you can kind of see what's happening. And then go back through with it, tilt it a little more. I sort of lost that line on that one, but it's fine. Yeah, I kind of messed that line up, but that's okay. Like I said, we're not going for perfection. Let me do it one more time on this new line. It's going to have like a cut through it, but whatever. I don't know how well you can see that, but it just sort of pushed it down a little. And then I'm going to take this tool, which is sort of kind of looks like a teardrop. It's got really rounded edges, so I'm just going to use it to like further press out. And you just don't want to go too hard at once with this, or you'll start seeing the edge. You're just sort of generally getting a little further out. And then I'm going to do this side this way. We're making this up as we go, and that is totally allowed. Nobody's telling me how to do it. Just see what feels right, and don't think too hard about it. Okay, I'm going to kind of concentrate on the corners a little more. And doing these like half hit slides is just kind of to smooth out between hits. I think that worked pretty well. I'm going to go back through. I'm just going to push my edges a little. Okay, I just put a line through it. Not the end of the world, but don't get overconfident. I think that's what I just did. You can see where I scraped it, but I'm not that worried about it. It'll be fine. We'll all survive it. But I am going to try in the future to not do that, because I didn't really mean to. All right, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do it off camera because it's probably going to take me about a day. Not because it takes a day, but because I get sidetracked easily. And I'll come back to it and show you where I'm at. I've worked on this some. I haven't quite got as far as finishing the hammering and the embossing, but I'm getting pretty close. And so I wanted to show the next step that I'm planning. So I'm going to finish. I don't have a overhead this time, but I'm going to finish hammering it out. I've done like a little bit here. Some thoughts I've had are, I don't think sealer is going to do much on this, but I'm hoping it'll get down in between the letters and at least seal those parts. But I think it's looking pretty good. We're going for, it looks good, not It looks perfect. I'm going to finish hammering that. We're going to glue it because I need it to dry overnight before I can do the stitching holes, just so it doesn't shift or anything, because it's going to take a lot of like moving around to stitch it out. So our next few steps are finish the hammering, which I am procrastinating on, but we'll get there. And then I'm going to try to round these edges off because I won't really be able to get to them once it's glued on here. And then I marked this side for where this is supposed to go because originally I was going to do that. I don't think I'm going to, though. I think I'm going to do it this way. So we're going to have to remark those edges, and then I need to mark where I'm going to hammer this through. And that way, when we do go to punch the holes, we can just keep it consistent. And I think if I remember right, what you do is you start at a corner, punch, and then put the first prong in the last hole. It's kind of like doing what do you call that in woodworking? Dovetail, like a dovetail joint. You just use the last one to line up the next one. Doesn't matter. So yeah, so that's where we're at. I'm going to do the hammering off camera, I think, and just finish that up. And then I'll come back and I'll show you rounding this edge and then gluing this down. Gluing it down is the scariest part because there's no turning back then. I'm not that worried about being perfect, so I'm not concerned. The one thing I'm not sure about is usually you would glue the rough edge to the rough edge and that gives you some bite, whereas this time I'm gluing the rough edge to the nice edge, and so I just need to make sure it's not going to slide or not stick. You know, if it was like acrylic or plastic or something, you would just sand it a little rough and then that would give you some bite. I don't know if that's how leather works. We'll see. Glue it down, put something heavy. Luckily, this is flat, so we can just put like some books on it, give it a day, and then should be good. All right, so I'll be back in a minute, and hopefully we'll have all this hammered out. I've completed the hammering, and I think you can see, I think it looks pretty good. Is it perfect? No, but would anybody mistake this for a machine-made product? Absolutely not, which I think is the way to go. Yeah, and it's got some mistakes in there. I call those maker's marks. That's how I like to see them. I've always kind of seen that as a nice thing. You don't want it to be too perfect. But yeah, I've got some scarring where I accidentally hit over, and I think it looks good. It looks like almost like hammered metal. So I think we're in good shape. So the next two steps, I'm going to do backwards from where I thought I was going to do them. I think the next thing we want to do is mark where the stitching is going to go. And I was going to do it with like cutting out the template and all that. I don't want to. So I think we're just going to use a ruler, and I'm just going to do it with a pencil. I'm just going to wet it a little bit so it'll, scar it. I'm going to try to avoid the corners, and we're just going to go that route. Here's my ruler, which I'm going to use upside down because it has this backing on it. I don't want to have like a gap distance-wise. So this does have some width to it. It's probably, I'll tell you exactly how wide it is. It's 3.8 millimeters, just over 1/8 of an inch, I think. We want to leave room for it because if we did the marking here, that would be too close to the edge. So I'm just going to eyeball the first one, and I'm going to say that's pretty good. I don't know if you can see that, but it doesn't really matter. I'm just putting a ruler on an edge. And we're just going to kind of guess. We're going to pick a number that's like repeatable, which I think is going to be 6.5 millimeter. Yeah, 6.5 millimeter. Okay, and I'm just going to push down a bit. Nice. Okay, so I'm just going to do all four edges. A little shaky because I've had a lot of coffee. We're just going to all say that everything that we do is on purpose. I have a bone tool in leatherwork. I've never had one. I'm sure they're great. I think it's probably like a bone folder that they use for bookmaking. I think enough animals died to make this. I don't need to do another one. So we're just going to use a pencil. I get why they don't do pencil because it's going to wear out really fast or it's going to mark the leather, things like that. So here's what we end up with. We have our stitching marks. I'm going to go through next. I'm just going to wet all my edges. I think what I'm going to do is hold the ruler under it just to give it, like if I was doing this for real, I'd put it on the edge of a table, but since I'm filming, that's kind of hard to do. And then you're just going to go at like a 45-degree angle, and you're just going to push just enough. And then once you do that 45, just start making a higher and a lower angle and kind of working it. We're really just trying to get like a slightly nicer edge. We're really not trying to like, get a whole rounded out perfect thing. Put some pressure on it for sure. Like this part, don't be gentle. Next step, we're gonna do this leather glue and our piece of leather. And I think to line this up, I'm just gonna mark it because once we do that, it'll hide whatever marks we put. I think as long as we get this side straight across. So if we line this up with our 2 corners, I think that's going to get us most of the way there. And then we just can measure with our trusty caliper to get it a little straighter. So I'm going to just mark this edge lightly. Corners, because those will get hidden the most by the fold. I don't suggest this. Like if you're making a bunch of these, like maybe don't mark that corner. Maybe make some kind of template or something. For this, it's fine. I'm going to glue this. I'm going to try to stay inside this edge by a decent margin, probably like 3/8 of an inch. And then on this, I'll like go a little closer to the edge because I want it to be strong out there. Okay, so we're just going to go for it. Who knows? So I'm just going to start on this piece because I feel like I kind of get it better. Oh, I made a little guy. It's a thin layer, so I'm just gonna rub it in. Now this does say it's a water-based glue, so I probably shouldn't take too long on this. Oh my god, it's already... Okay, faster, everybody move faster. I think this one will spread a little easier because it's like a smoother surface. I'm gonna put that towards the bottom, so then we're just gonna go here to here, and then I'm gonna put something heavy on this for now, and then I'm gonna add some books later, and then I'm gonna give it overnight to dry. See how that goes. I might do this off camera because I think it's gonna take a concrete floor to hammer through this with this. I'll do that and then we'll stitch it and then rivet the corners and we'll be done. Easy peasy. So we've made some progress. It's been a couple days. The glue dried. It slid just a little bit, but as you can see, it's not enough to matter, I don't think. I put a book on it and the weight of that just slid because of the slickness of the leather and the glue. So if I had it to do over again, maybe press down and just hold it in place for a few minutes and then put books on it. Here's where we're at. I did get it glued. I did get the holes punched for the stitching. I had to do that on the floor of the garage, so I couldn't really film it. What we're gonna do next, and just to remind you, this is what I use to punch the holes. There's 4 prongs, and you just follow that line and hammer it out. The corners, I kind of had to guess distances, but generally speaking, you just overlap one hole, do the next set, overlap a hole to keep it, the distance is the same. It worked great for being a 50-year-old tool, like had no problems. I don't fully remember how to stitch, and I don't have any kind of holder. A lot of people do a holder. We don't have that. So I think what I'm gonna do is get enough thread. I'm gonna, if this was the leather, I'm gonna string it out from either side about 4 times longer than the distance will be. And then I'm just gonna do a cross and through stitch. We'll see. This is my thread. It's pre-waxed. It's kind of thick, perfect for leather stuff. So like I said, I'm just gonna try to vaguely get a sense of how long all 6 of these sides are together. It doesn't matter that much. Basically, that's the distance around it. So I'm gonna multiply that times 4, and this is not technical work. This is get it about right, go over a little just in case, and you're good. Then next we're just gonna, I'm not gonna do this the fancy way. There is a fancy way to tie a knot in it. So there we go. Okay, so there's one side, and then we're just gonna do the exact same thing on the other side. It's a little to get started, but honestly, it's literally almost just crisscrossing. I'm sure the people that do it really well have tricks and they have ways of doing it that is better, but basically it's just crossing paths with a little bit of a knot in there. The hardest part's probably starting it and ending it, or probably ending it, I guess, which we're just gonna do with a couple of back stitches and a little bit of glue. This is not a big wear and tear item. I'm sure if you're making a saddle, you gotta get a perfect stitch and you gotta worry about stretch and bend, and it's not going to take the wear and tear that a saddle would, so I'm not going to worry all that much. To get started, we're just going to decide where to start, and I think that I want to do that in the bottom left corner. And there's not really a specific reason, except that in my head, if you're reading this, the top should look better than the bottom, I guess. I don't know. So I'm going to try to take my thread about halfway through. So you have some on one side, some on the other. Some people backstitch at the beginning, and I'm just not sure I'm going to do that. I think what I'm going to do is start in this corner, go all the way around, go just past my knot, and then end exactly where I started. That's my theory of how I'm going to do this. If you're going to do this yourself, don't follow my guidelines. Probably look online for somebody that knows what they're doing. But this will get you started. It's handmade and doesn't have to be perfect. We're through this first hole. So in the second hole, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this needle through from the back. So we're going to call this the back needle. Just made that up. You can push it through, and then you're just going to hold it here. And then you're going to switch that for your front needle, and you're going to go through behind it. And then you're going to go through here, and then you're just going to flip this over it. I don't know what that does. It feels like it doesn't do anything, but that's how people do it. And then you're gonna pull that through, and then you're just gonna take all your thread, all that extra, and you're just gonna try not to pull that. Your distance is different, and then we're just gonna pull it kind of taut. I'll do a few stitches here. I thought I was gonna, this is a stitching awl. It's a different type of stitch. I haven't done it in so long that I don't really remember how to do it, but it's got its own little bobbin and thread, and it helps you kind of, it's got like a nice palm thing so you can really push through. It's really not necessary on this build, but it is an option. Again, we're gonna go through the back with the back. This is now the back needle. If you're doing all these technical terms, all the way through, pull it out. We're gonna pull it. I'm trying to do this where it's good on camera. Typically I would just like hold this between my knees or something, but okay. And then we're just gonna pull out all that slack. Pretty taut. I mean, we want this to be tight. It doesn't have to be crazy. So there we go. It's not going to be the most beautiful thing on earth, but you know, you'll look at it after and you made it yourself and you did it from scratch and you'll be proud of it. All right, I'm going to do this off camera so I can do it a little quicker. I'll come back once I start doing the end stitching. I got the stitching done. It actually only took about a half hour. It really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I think it did pretty good. It looks great. Here's our next steps. I have to tie this off and hide the end, which should be no big deal. I think I'm just going to keep going a couple stitches and then clip it off pretty close to the stitch and then shove a little glue down in the hole and call it a day. And if I have to repair it later, I will, but I don't know why I would. I think that'll work fine. Then we have to put in whatever we're going to do here to hold the edges up. I wanted to use these because this would be a snap, but they're made for thicker leather because if you put one of these, you have to put one on each side, which means it's only going through that thin piece. So that's not going to work. But I have plenty of rivet options for different lengths, and I think I have some like double cap rivets, so it'll look good from both sides. So I think we're going to do that, and I think what I'm going to end up doing is measuring it from the back, guessing on one, and then just transferring that mark to each one, and then I'll punch these holes. I figured out that I have this vintage brown dye. It needs a top coat. So I think realistically what I should do is punch those holes and then stop, coat it with the dye, and then coat it with a top coat. It's like an acrylic top coat, which will just protect it. It'll keep the dye from getting on anything. So we got one more big step and then we're done. So let's get this glued. So all I'm going to do is I was going around this way, which is counterclockwise, and I'm right at the stitch that I started with now. I'm just going to go into the next stitch around the top, right? Yeah. And come through and just try to be careful not to pierce the original stitching. And then I'm going to go back through just above that. I know there's a right way to do this. I don't want to. And then just pull that. And I'm just going to do one more. We're just going to pull that. It's really tight, a little tighter than the others. And then we're just going to cut that off really close. Try not to cut the leather. Cut it off right inside there. And then when I do this, I am going to try not to stress it too much until I can get the glue in. On the back side doesn't matter quite as much because it's going to be hidden. My plan here for this show is to show you that if you plan it out and you figure out each step and you kind of take your time, you can kind of make anything. You don't have to go to the College of Leather. You don't have to apprentice somebody for 20 years. I'm not saying there's not positives to that, but it makes something. I don't know, it's rewarding. It's like a nice distraction. It's not staring at a phone, like it's just nice. So just make something. So then I'm going to take those needles we were working with, just so I have like a big end. I'm going to take a little bit of this glue, and then here's where I did that. And I'm just going to take that needle, I'm just going to dip the end and just get like the smallest little dab. Can you see it? Kind of try not to hit the leather, but just get the rest of it and kind of spread it onto there. It's just going to hopefully hold that end. And then I'm not going to flip this over all the way and put it down, but I'm just going to flip it to here. And then this one I can be a little bit more liberal with. So I'm just going to like kind of almost backfill that hole. And a little bit of the stitch before it, because you're not going to see this part. I'm just going to give it like a half hour or so to dry. I'm just going to do that so it's not touching anything. So our glue is dry enough. I don't think it's going to come out at this point. So the next step is to mark the holes for making it have the side. So I'm just going to pinch a corner. I'm going to assume like the further out I put the rivet from the pinch, the more angled the walls are. And I don't want them straight up and down, so I don't want to pinch too much. So I think I'm going to kind of split the difference and do about like that, because I think it's going to stretch just a little bit. And I want the rivet down far enough so the cap's not right on the edge. So I'm just going to mark that one. And then if I flip it over on its back, I now have this mark, and I know that this is the edge of the wall. And I know that these are my rivets, so they're going to go here. And that's plenty of gap between the wall and it, just to look nice. Yeah, they're 7.7 minus the base. So they're 5 millimeters long, which 2 pieces of leather is 3, and then you need some room for it to mushroom to lock in. So I think these are the perfect size. I'm going to take my ruler, and then I'm going to put it between the point. So that way I know I can measure how far this is in from the edge, how far it is in from the point, and how far over it is from that point line. And then I should be able to repeat that over and over again. So it's 9.3 off the line. Oddly enough, it's 9.3 off the edge, which is great. It's 15 millimeter off the edge. So 15 millimeter from the point, and then 9.3 over. I'm gonna punch this hole. So just a scrap piece of leather. Okay, so I have 2 hole punches here. One is about 2.5 millimeter hole. This one's about a 5 millimeter, maybe a 4 millimeter hole. So for these, I think this bigger one's gonna be the ticket. You just wanna center it up on that hole. Oh, for being that old a tool, that worked great. So there's our hole. I'm gonna go around and do all of them. Okay, that wasn't too bad. So we did the 9.3 millimeters, 15 from the point, and I just lined them all up on the center lines. So now we have all of our holes. I tested one, I put the thing through, and it's pretty good. So I'm pretty excited about this. You know, if you're making this for yourself, which I hope you do, I think I would have, like if I had it to do over again, I had material or I was buying material, I think what I would have done is glued another piece of this leather facing out onto this, and then I would have done a stitch that glued it on, and then done a stitch that pulled those together. The other option is to make the inside suede. I don't know how you do that, but there are a bunch of options you could go with. Just check out what your options are and see. But you can go a lot of routes with this. So next we're gonna dye this leather, because I want to do that while it's flat and I can get to everything. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my dye on here, and I'm just going to use this because I feel like this doesn't have a ton of lint coming off of it, which I think is probably going to be the biggest detriment. So this is like an antiquing dye. It's real gelatinous, and you kind of want to get enough out to do the whole thing, because what happens is you have to wipe it off real quick, and if you do like part of it and then wipe it off, it's gonna have variation in it. I think you can even see it a little bit on here, like where I stopped and started. So we're just gonna try to do the whole thing, immediately wipe it off. I'm not that worried about it getting super dark. I'm gonna try really hard to get down along these edges. Looking back, I probably should have dyed this separately and then glued it and did all that. We didn't do that, and I'm not going back to redo it. So we're just gonna see how this goes. Worst that happens is we want to make another one, because this one doesn't look very good. And I'm pretty okay with that. Okay, it says to clean first, so there we go. Perfectly clean. I'm just going to try to get enough on there to get the side and the top at the same time. Probably should be wearing gloves. Again, I don't want to, and I don't have them handy. So I'm just going to do this part first, because I can get to it really easily. And we're just going to go for it, so wish me luck. Okay, yeah, I do see that most people probably do the stitch last. We're just going to try to get in here really good. It is dyeing the stitching, which is fine, I guess. And I'm just going to go back and wipe it down. Okay, so now I'm just going to do this part. Okay, all the spots. Just try to fade your edges out a little bit. And don't worry about hitting too much. It does, you can watch it kind of change color. If you try to cross over in the spots where it's going to get folded anyway, you're not really going to see those. Got one more edge. I mean, it looks pretty good, honestly. Far from perfect, but... And I'm just going to fold this around. Not sure how bad this is for you, but I'll report back in a few days and let you know. Okay, and I'm just kind of trying to buff it in and get all the excess out. Okay, here's what it looks like right now. I think that's not bad. It has a quality. So I'm just going to go back in where you can see here where you can see the line. I'm just going to see if I can add a little more and sort of fade that line out. Okay, and I'm just gonna do a little bit more on here. Yeah, I don't know if it's bad that the stitches got it, but they did. So I'm gonna say it's a good thing. I'm gonna say you really wanna dye your stitches a different color. I'm not sure if we can do anything about that now, but I'm just gonna buff it out a little bit more. I'm gonna kind of rub into this. I guess I would like the edges to be done, so I'm just gonna put a little more down. I'm just gonna try to run it along these outside edges semi-carefully. Not really, let's be honest here. Just so the edges look good from above. And go back on the top, make sure I kind of wipe that back out. They make a thing for this too. It's like a little brush type thing, but I don't have one. Almost got it. I think it sort of acts as its own solvent. So it does feel like if I put a little more on here, I might be able to sort of get it to blend a little better. There we go. So yeah, I'm just gonna try that. Because it seems like lightens it. It's interesting. I might just, honestly, I might just rivet this while it's wet. I don't really want to wait to have this done. I'm kind of excited about it. They said not to use it on the back, but I kind of want to just try it and see, because if I can just do the back dark too, like that would be kind of cool. So let's just try. Yeah, it absorbs super quick, but I don't really have any plans for the rest of the bottle. Yeah, screw it. Let's do it. I think some of it's going to come through these holes, so we just need to be careful to like flip it back over and get that smoothed out. My guess is you just wouldn't want this to dry like in a mass. You know, you want it like all absorbed into the leather. I wanted to try this antiquing gel, which so far I do like. A little more complicated, but it seems to do a good job. Now I have that on really well. Kind of buff it out. All right, I'm just going to go back through, make sure none of that came through those holes. And then to dry it, because I did both sides, I think what I'll do is just balance it on this bottle. Hopefully it doesn't stick. So, okay, so here's where we're at. There's the back, kind of rough and tumble looking, but there's the front, looks pretty good. So I'm gonna give this like a half hour, and then I think I'm just gonna hit those rivets in. So this has had a little bit of time to dry, and I've made the decision to go ahead and assemble it and do the corners. I played around with redoing the stitching because I accidentally dyed it a little out of order and dyed my stitches, but I decided I kind of like the low contrast look of it with the dark stitches, so I don't think I'm going to change that. And then the back came out, it looks like an old worn piece of leather. Not bad. So yeah, all we have to do is rivet these corners and we will have some walls, and then I'll grab some dice and we'll test it out. The hard part of these corners is if you fold them, you can't really put it flat on the table to rivet it. There's different ways to go about that. I think here we might just do the edge of the table. It doesn't take a lot of force to get these rivets to pop. So the basics of riveting are you have a cap. You're not gonna be able to see any of this. You have a little cap. You have this is kind of the rivet part. And then you have this. I don't know what it's called, but it's basically just a cylinder of metal, but it has a rounded part that keeps the rivet rounded. And then you have this that's like a little anvil plate, which also is rounded. So all that just keeps your rivet from like flattening out. All right, let's just try it on the side of the table. Definitely a tricky angle. If you get that there, get this here, I think that we could make this happen. We did it. I didn't think that was gonna work. I thought that's a dice tray wall. So one down. All right, so let's just go around and do all of them. I do tend to like to do the rivet part pointing up, but I don't think it really matters too much. And I do have a suspicion here that the more we do, the harder it's going to get, because it's just going to, the leather's going to get kind of stretched. It's starting to come together. I think that's going to be pretty nice. This leather is so thick that it's really going to keep it flat too, which will be nice for a dice tray. Okay, 2 more. There's a few on the floor. Trying to hold that. I'm just trying to hit as straight down as I can. Okay, last one. Had to be the last one. Okay, so this one did have a little bit of a problem. Like, the cap didn't go down flush. I don't know if my hammer was crooked. But I can either rip it out, or I might just be able to turn it to where the not flush side is towards the bottom. Let's see if I can turn both at the same time. I think I'm just going to leave it like that. I don't think you can even tell now. All right, let's get some dice and try it. Per usual, Battletech dice to start. I didn't want to use the hard. My wife has a green pair of like hard edge dice, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to test that out first thing, just in case they do stab into that leather. I think that works perfectly. I know a dice tray is not like some technology that has to do a certain thing, but nobody saw that. Lands nicely. They're easy to read. I'd say we did it. I really appreciate you watching this whole thing, especially if you got through the entire thing, because it was a lot of steps. But here we are. We have a dice tray. I hope you make your own. I will probably seal this. I'll probably just post it as a reel or something when I get it sealed. So watch our air quotes and margin notes to see this thing getting used. Maybe I'll do another one of these in the future. That was pretty fun. I actually like that process. I miss stitching leather and doing stuff like that. All right, I'm going to close out with a few shots of the final product. I appreciate you watching. Like and subscribe. Check out some of our other shows, and I'm working on a few things. I'm going to make some other stuff. Lots to come in the future, so stay tuned.